This is our primary piece of evidence. This is what we're going to be tearing apart through all of this. This stuff right here is complete BS, and this right here proves it. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with this very first one, John Holland, aid and assist. Now, before we go any further on this, I want to show you my psychological evaluations. This one right here, it's got my name on it, says the date and all that kind of crap. Morgan Beckman, MD, Director, Forensic Evaluation Service, Oregon State Hospital. Right here, Dr. James Pekanu, MD, Supervising Psychiatrist, Oregon State Hospital, Certified Forensic Evaluator. Right here, this is the stuff that he used in his evaluation. This first part right here is probably the most important part, actually, for this particular situation. The second part here, A&E Murder on the 21st, Season 1, Episode 1, A Deadly Post. He verified that existed, and Joseph Lopez is the one that killed her. These are all things that he looked up, so he knows them to be true. Also, there's the stuff from Tillamook Police Department and Tillamook Family Counseling records. My notice of self-defense, Tillamook County indictment, and ORS some crap or other. So this is an aid and assist, basically the mentally ill thing, just the legal version. This is on weaponizing the term aid and assist, and this explains all the things that I'm going to be showing you. This is just a review because we went over this in the last video. And this is the part in specific: systemic failure, political framing, weaponizing the claim. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. Basically, the point is to make the victim look like they're crazy in order to protect you and your friends and coworkers. Right here, it says, at the time of my evaluation, Mr. Schwartz met DSM-5 TR criteria for the following: mental diseases or defects, post-traumatic stress disorder. At the time of my evaluation, Mr. Schwartz was able to understand the nature of the proceedings against him, was able to aid or was able to assist and cooperate with counsel and participate in his defense. He was able to make relevant decisions autonomously. It says, Sean described extensive difficulty in his social network related to the murder of a friend of his in late 2017, Natalie Bollinger. The murder is considered solved, and a man named Joseph Michael Lopez was convicted in Colorado for it. He was sentenced to 48 years in prison after the investigation led to his arrest based on evidence linking him to the homicide. Mr. Lopez confessed to the crime in the course of the investigation. News reports are not entirely consistent, but the dominant narrative is that Miss Bollinger had put an ad on Craigslist asking for someone to volunteer to kill her. Sorry, I had to move my mouse. As she was unable to commit suicide but wished to be dead. Mr. Schwartz indicated that her murder has significant notoriety, especially in the true crime podcast and media interest community, and that he has been subject to extensive harassment as a result of media portrayals stating he was possibly connected to her murder and that prior to her murder he had harassed and possibly abused her. It is noted that Mr. Schwartz was initially considered a person of interest in Miss Bollinger's murder, but that he was ruled out as a suspect over the course of the investigation. I conducted some internet searches regarding Natalie Bollinger and her murder, news reports regarding Mr. Schwartz, follow-up reports related to the resolution of Miss Bollinger's murder, as well as viewing several videos from the YouTube account Mr. Schwartz has maintained, in which he frequently posts various videos of being harassed for engaging in rants about such. Though the underlying facts of Miss Bollinger's murder and Mr. Schwartz's relationship to her are far beyond the scope of this report, I do note that the essential narrative he provided regarding this history was corroborated in conducting these searches. Why trauma victims ramble so much? You notice he wrote the word ramble. Trauma victims often ramble due to an overwhelmed nervous system and need to unburden pent-up emotions, intrusive memories, anxiety, or as a fawn response, oversharing to please or connect, leading to racing thoughts, difficulty filtering information, and a sense of being out of control, which can manifest itself as talking, right there, talking rapidly, looping or oversharing to process the unprocessed feelings and experiences trapped inside. This verbal outpouring isn't usually rambling, but a desperate attempt to find safety and release, often followed by shame. I want to remind you again, this right here, he types, "Your suffering is funny." This is from only 2 hours ago. Here's one that definitely should be taken as a threat, and definitely towards me. And here's that video. We don't need to play the whole thing, it's 2 hours long.
And fucking, this guy knows telekinesis, and we just fucked with him for years. Damn.
Oh, sorry.
He's funny.
He's funny. They get off on it. They harass me. He said for a year, but it's been about 3 or 4 years worth of this. All right, so here's more of my psychological evaluation. It says, appearance. Mr. Schwartz was brought to the appointment early by Tillamook County staff, and prior to my arrival, he was seated in one of the interview rooms where staff had placed him. He was in shackles with green and white striped scrubs, jail attire, appropriate dress. His grooming and hygiene were good overall. He had a long beard, but it was relatively kept. He had advanced male pattern hair recession and short to medium length hair otherwise. He was not malodorous. He did not appear to be in major distress, though when he got up to move around, he did wince a bit and had a gait reflective of back pain. He appeared older than his stated age and to be in fair physical health. So I'm showing you psychological evaluations. I'm showing you medical records, the stuff they want to keep out of it. Behavior interactions, impression management. He was generally pleasant throughout the interview. Before I met with him, he had fallen asleep for several minutes while waiting. We also got a late start due to coordination of the interview with his attorney in attendance, and there were some technical difficulties in getting this to occur. He tolerated this delay without difficulty and was mildly apologetic about the circumstance, though I reassured him that it was not problematic for me. He was not hostile at any point, and rapport was developed relatively easily once we got going. On a couple of occasions, he was very mildly ingratiating, though this was in context of having developed significant rapport and in relation to his narrative, which I acknowledged was quite unusual. He essentially thanked me for not dismissing his claims out of hand. He was awake, alert, and fully oriented to person, place, time, and situation. Motor activity, speech, and eye contact. Other than a mildly abnormal gait due to back pain, motor activity was within normal limits. Speech was normal with regard to rate, volume, tone, cadence, and prosody? I don't know what that word means. I'll have to look it up. Eye contact was good throughout the interview, which lasted several hours. He also had good eye contact prior to formal interview beginning, during some brief interactions, and we had around logistics and introductions and pleasantries. So, obviously, I'm doing my best. I'm speaking to this guy. There's no violent anything, obviously. Now, TFCC, the records that I'm going to show you all the lies in, which we've already covered some of those lies already just from the first page. So, let's see. Other than a mildly abnormal gait due to... we already read that part, didn't we? Mood and effect. When asked his mood, Mr. Schwartz reported, "Mostly I feel scared shitless all the time, but you put me at ease." He demonstrated a full range of facial emotional expression in his effect. That's right. I'm a good masker. It says, though Mr. Schwartz had an unusual and at times convoluted narrative of events. Now this belief, the convoluted words, that right there is because he did look this stuff up, but I didn't have access to the evidence to show him all of the reality of it, because the story that they tell isn't true. So he assumed, but it says, and on occasion he was mildly over-inclusive. This seemed to reflect more that he felt the need to get as much information to me about the complex situation as he could in a limited time frame. His discussion was entirely coherent, consistent, and linear in narrative. He did not make any clearly delusional statements, though he did describe persecution over many years after Natalie Bollinger's death. He specifically reported that the persecution had started about a year prior to her death, when he had been given a phone by her and her twin sister, and due to his ineptness and some dysfunction of the phone itself, he had miscommunicated some of his thoughts. He also added, at the time he was undergoing a lot of stress, and some of his statements were likely distressing to others when they read them. Well, no, that is not what I said. And we're going to go over that in a second, because this right here comes very specifically from the slander by TFCC. This is my messages to the TFCC investigator, starting April 15th, 2024. These are threats against my life, not hers. This is evidence that what I told them are not delusions. This is how far back, at least, that they were aware that these were not delusions. April 15th, 2024. I sent them this. This is somebody literally threatening the life of my sister and my friends, and this is over the Natalie Bollinger situation. And this guy wants to coerce me into pretending that I'm a chimo in exchange for the life of my sister and my niece. Now, I'd like to read all of this to you, but really, there's not a lot of time. It says, Mr. Schwartz demonstrated good insight about mental illness, including describing others who he observed that appeared to clearly have symptoms of thought disorder, and he was able to articulate reasons that he did not believe such issues applied to him. He understood why others had concerns about his mental health and possible presence of a thought disorder. His judgment with regard to interactions with me and others, including his attorney, was considered to be good. Additionally, he demonstrated a good judgment with regard to discussion of various legal issues related to competency assessment. Right here, we got prior opinions, multiples. We've got Ashley Astute, who's one of them. Sorry about I'm trying to get it to focus. Benjamin LaLiberty. And they definitely have their own credentials as well. This is the stuff that Tillamook Family Counseling had to say, and of course we're going to go through that because, like I said, their slander made it into this paperwork. One thing I'm going to point out in all this stuff right here, they intentionally left out the names of the people who were involved. So this is the BS that was written by TFCC and sent in. Here you go. However, given his PTSD diagnosis and lack of these other signs of thought disorder, it is my opinion that a thought disorder is effectively ruled out. This one also shows the absence of a mood disorder. He wrote, however, it is my opinion that the mood symptoms he reports are attributable to post-traumatic stress disorder. Here we go. However, corroborating reports of her death do confirm that she was murdered on the date he reported and in the manner he described. Relative to her death, Mr. Schwartz was a person of interest, but then ruled out, however. He has gained unwanted notoriety as a result of his connection to the victim, and this, in combination with his unusual interpersonal style and appearance, have caused him to become the target of repeated abuse and harassment in multiple communities, despite efforts to relocate and gain a fresh start away from prior difficulties. He relates that this is due to the infamy of the case within the true crime podcast and social media community. It is noted that in a very brief and cursory search of the internet corroborates both the factual narrative Mr. Schwartz provides as well as providing evidence of the negative notoriety he claims relative to these events, which adds weight to the claim about the effects Miss Bollinger's murder has had on his life. In addition to this, Mr. Schwartz describes other contacts within the homeless community where he has experienced similar difficulties. And there's a bunch of stuff in here that's BS just because he assumed it. But it's not like we had, all the time that we needed. My attorney showed up late and some other issues showed up. Right here, it says, most recently, 5/25, Mr. Schwartz completed an evaluation at the Oregon State Hospital with Dr. James Pekanu, psychiatrist. Dr. Pekanu diagnosed Mr. Schwartz with a primary diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. In his report, Dr. Pekanu discussed his reasons for ruling out diagnoses such as schizophrenia, delusional disorder, bipolar disorder, major depressive disorder, and substance use disorders. He noted symptoms of possible tics when Mr. Schwartz was stressed. All right, this is a different part. Sorry about that. This is the battery of tests that I was given by Dr. Leslie Carter. See all of them? Yeah. All right, it says the test of memory malingering is a visual memory test used to determine the degree of effort a client is putting forth during cognitive testing. Mr. Schwartz scored a 50-50 on the first trial, showing adequate effort on cognitive testing. The Ritvo Autism Asperger's Diagnostic Scale, RAADS-R, is a diagnostic interview used to review autism spectrum disorder, ASD, in adults. It has a strong reliability and validity statistics and is correlated with other measures of ASD. A score of 65 or higher is considered significant for the possible autism spectrum disorder symptoms. Mr. Schwartz and I reviewed autism-related symptoms. He received a score of 162, which is above the cutoff for autism spectrum disorder level 1. Yes, 162 is much higher than 65. Yes, I'm autistic, and yes, I'm high-functioning autistic. So this is from 4/22/24. This is only a few days after that, well, supposed assessment, one of them anyway, the investigator that I was told that I needed to visit. Now, John Holland here is not able to diagnose schizophrenia or delusions, and this is the first piece of paper that we have, isn't it? This sucks. It says, this writer interviewed client over the phone regarding a request for a community consultation. Really? It says, due to client's recent aggressive and threatening messages to the weekend worker, this assessment was completed over the phone. No, it wasn't. And you got to see that those threats were very clearly towards my sister. Here, let me pause and show you. See, there's the weekend worker, April 15th. I guess that's 7 days before this. And these are threats against me. This is evidence that I'm not delusional, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in the least bit. Oh, by the way, here's the voice of the guy that they had me in jail over.
You don't get me confused, man. I ain't no fucking PC. I'll stab you right in your fucking eyeball and show your fucking ass. It's my fucking heartbeat. Never.
Not sure if you heard that click click. That is pretty scary. So, of course, they want to pretend that these are delusions, even after it was verified that they're not. It says, after the interviews, records were reviewed and the report written. Really? Where's the report? It says the report was then emailed to opposing attorneys and submitted to the Tillamook Circuit Court. Client presented with multiple paranoid delusions related to the police and agencies in Tillamook. Now, what were those so-called delusions? Well, I was saying that they were treating me like I was schizophrenic and delusional instead of investigating this or taking my disability seriously. They kept on repeatedly trying to have me pegged as schizophrenic and delusional over things that you guys get to see, because it's not just the police and agencies in Tillamook. And we'll get to go through this because there's a lot of this. The major thing was the Natalie Bollinger thing, and we're going to go over that as well. John Holland, CSWA, not able to diagnose schizophrenia. Tammy Waddell, LCSW, also. Yeah, these are social workers, or, well, I guess John Holland is a clinical social worker's assistant, so he's not actually really a social worker even. And of course, it says John Holland and Tammy Waddell. Here's one with Mary Lindsay from 4/28/2024. Yep. Aid and assist. It says client continues to present himself as a danger to himself and will remain in booking and reevaluated in 24 hours. Continues on suicide watch till further evaluation. He will continue to be monitored by jail staff every 30 minutes. He will be reevaluated in 24 hours. Now, of course, they wanted to continue to pretend that Natalie Bollinger was a delusion through all of this. Here's another one from Mary Lindsay, and these are the situations where I was repeatedly physically assaulted, harassed, and of course they want to pretend that I was trying to commit suicide and out to harm others. No, I was being victimized in the jail, being harassed, and of course being neglected. I literally was forced to harm myself to try to get someone to hear me, to get someone to show up to actually listen. And of course, this is the crap that they try to pull. But we got to get into it further, don't we? Because she definitely mentions the Natalie Bollinger situation. Now, over and over, they want to pull this aid and assist crap. And over, it did not work. There's a reason for that. You've gotten to see multiple psychological evaluations, and there's even more. There are a lot more. Here we go. This one is from John Holland as well. Aid and assist. Like I said, I did not have an attorney through any of this, by the way. It says this writer attended court for client. Client, really? Not for me. This dude's too busy trying to pretend that I'm schizophrenic and delusional long after he's well aware that I'm not. Tries pretending that I was threatening their weekend worker. Obviously, nobody threatened their weekend worker. It also says client does not have an attorney and the judge did not want to release client. Well, I wonder why that is. Might it have something to do with the slander and the abuse by John Holland and his co-workers? Well, it just might be. It says the judge set the hearing over 1 week and asked that TFCC meet with client and see if it is possible for client to be released. It says the next hearing is scheduled for 5/9. Well, he didn't show up. Did not show up. Did not show up. I was getting bullied by the staff in the jail still. This is the 14 days that I spent just prior. These are, so you guys got to see the videos of people threatening to kill me in the last video. Yep, so of course it says aid and assist. We're still working on the aid and assist thing. She just kept on pulling this stuff. Judge Trevino reported court was unable to assign legal counsel and is likely unable to aid and assist. So Judge Trevino, who I had tried to turn in previously, TFCC, who I'd tried to turn in previously, John Holland in specific, who I'd tried to turn in previously, and all were aware already by this point that I was not schizophrenic or delusional, and yet they proceeded. It says, client is not a candidate for community restoration. A state forensic evaluation would take too long to schedule, and the judge did not want to warehouse the client in jail. Judge Trevino dismissed the case. And they still kept me even longer based on absolute lies from these people. But because they said it, it must be true, correct? Now, what's community restoration? Oh, well, that's apparently what they were supposed to be doing with that investigator who wanted to pretend that I was threatening her life. No, those were threats against my life and my sister's life. But still, they persist. So, this one right here. Again, while I was in the jail, while they were pretending that these were delusions, we're going to continue. A whole bunch more of this crap. He doesn't care if it's true or not. And yes, we'll go through more of this. So this guy writes down, this is John Holland, by the way, claims that I present with multiple fixed delusions and denies SI, but has engaged in self-harming behavior. I tell them I'm not trying to kill myself. He also denies HI, which is homicidal ideations, and presents with multiple fixed delusions. What are these multiple fixed delusions they keep talking about? See here, they go out of their way to intentionally leave what it is that I actually set out. What's this evidence that people are hurting and stalking me? Perseverating on things. Yes, let's take a look. They want to pretend that this is a fixed delusion. Apparently there's someone yelling at my car about hiring someone to beat them up. Oh, it's Chris Stafford trying to pretend I hired. By the way, you can see in the video that my windows are all busted out as well. At this point, I've also had to replace all of my tires on my car. They also damaged my door to the point that it won't work. Someone to beat them up. 909 PCT. You fucking little girl stalking piece of shit, motherfucker. Yeah, report me. I told you. The cops are gonna fucking laugh at you, you're a piece of shit. You notice how I'm talking calmly? Yep, that literally just happened. That's Chris Stafford. He assaulted me and threatened my life on multiple occasions. Yep, I told you. Who fucking hired somebody to fucking try to beat my ass? Ain't nobody hired no. Stop! Stop! Get away from me! Get away from me! Get away from me! Get away from me! No, you can't! Get away from me! 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 I've had to deal with this. People doing that, and even worse, since 2016. Screaming those exact things. And John Holland and his co-workers wanted to pretend that this was all a delusion. There's plenty of evidence from other deputies that shows that they were well aware ahead of time. Multiple recordings of these situations. Here's Mary Lindsay. Now, at the hospital, they broke a lot of laws, and we're going to get into that paperwork in just a minute. We're running out of time here because this is about to end. But we're going to focus on this part right here. It says, patient continues on his fixed delusions of being harassed due to the murder of his friend. Denies suicidal and homicidal ideations and continues to refuse any medication. I wasn't offered any medication. Imagine that. It says, states he is not crazy. It appears that he is unaware of his behaviors or his delusions. Well, we've already proven that these aren't delusions, and I was well aware of my behaviors. I tried being nice. I tried turning it in nicely. I tried speaking to these people who were assaulting me nicely. Yeah. I tried telling these people the truth, but they had already decided They didn't care what the truth was. See, these people are not able to make these diagnoses, and the people who are qualified to make the diagnoses state outright that these people are outright wrong. It says, states he is not crazy. It appears that he is unaware of his behaviors or delusions. And right here, this is from my evaluation. However, corroborating reports of her death do confirm that she was murdered on the date he reported and in the manner he described. Relative to her death, Mr. Schwartz was a person of interest, but then ruled out. However, he has gained unwanted notoriety as a result of his connection to the victim. Imagine how much you can learn when you bother to look it up instead of victimizing the hell out of somebody and allowing these people to do this over and over and over again. And this is only the start. Here's another one from Nebraska stating outright that I do not experience any hallucinations or other psychosis, and I do not meet the diagnostic criteria for schizophrenia. Imagine that. That's from all the way back in 2022. And she visited me on my birthday in the Scottsbluff County Jail. Imagine that. A lot of the stuff that was gotten wrong by my evaluators was only because I was incapable of showing them evidence. They won't allow you access to the evidence when you're in jail. You have to rely on others who are useless. This is evidence. They had to drop the charges, by the way. Yeah, Mawson was the one who threatened me, not the other way around. He's the one who came at me with a pipe, not the other way around. Now let's focus on my rights. John Holland refused to allow me to have any of these civil rights on a civil hold. That's right, they lied in order to get a civil hold. Imagine that. It says you have the right to wear your own clothing. You have the right to keep personal possessions. You have the right to religious freedom. They wouldn't let me have my personal possessions. It says you have the right to a private storage area with free access. I didn't have free access. If they did have a private storage, and half the stuff they threw away. It says you have the right to decline to perform routine labor tasks, except those tasks that are, this is not the part I'm looking for. So, daily access to fresh air and all that. All of these things were prevented, most of them anyway. Obviously, we need to go through all of these because this is all stuff that repeatedly they refused me the right to have my telephone because they claimed that it continued on my fixed delusions, or that it, what was it they said to the hospital staff, that it only encourages my delusions. Now you've gotten to see they're not delusions. We've barely even gotten started. There is so much here. There is a lot from these deputies that shows that they absolutely spoke out. Here's the evidence that Deputy Moody gave me that I did try to turn in the abuse that Claire Jordan was letting me know about. Here's the evidence. This is the last piece of evidence that I got from TFCC, where they're supposedly going to investigate themselves. I'm cut off from TFCC because I tried to turn them in. But I've been trying to turn them in since 2022.